everybody, welcome back to the Car Compulsion YouTube channel. You join me in the M2 Comp, actually for one of the last times. I know in a couple of the other videos I've been talking about changing out of the Comp and actually looking for something different, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to make that move to the Porsche or the other things that I was looking at. I won't bore you with the details, life is grisly enough, but basically the coronavirus has had a few implications on my business and a few things that I do, so just playing it safe for a little while and actually looking to save a little bit of money. So I have something else coming in 2 days. It's not quite as grand and probably not quite as I suppose pleasing as the M2 will be, but I'm hoping it's going to provide a lot of fun nonetheless. Before I say goodbye to the M2 Comp, I wanted to do a bit of a video around what it's been like to live with for 3 months as a daily driver. At the moment I drive it 5 days a week. I do around 25 miles each way. Well, probably actually around 20 miles each way, so around 40 miles a day. I have 2 children, so I use it for things like that, when it comes to football sometimes, and also school runs. Let me start by saying that the car is a brilliant daily driver. The M2 Comp is a good car to be in daily. It's not without its niggles, and I will talk about how that's kind of impacted me. But just as a disclaimer, that everything I'm about to talk about is kind of down to my personal preference and my personal life situation. It's not going to be the same for everybody else. These are just opinions, and I will be going into a few things that I didn't particularly like, but overall as a daily driver the M2 Competition is a nice place to be. The other thing that I've really enjoyed, or I like about the M2 Competition on a daily basis, and I haven't really spoken about it much in my other reviews, is the sound system. This car has the Harman Kardon stereo. It's actually really, really good. It's probably one of the better ones that I've had in any car, and actually it makes it a nice place to be on a daily basis. I've actually been reasonably surprised at the practicality of the M2 Competition. It actually has quite a sizable boot, albeit that the boot is actually quite narrow. You know, it's not a flat load bay boot that you'll find on some cars, but it's quite sizable, and I've actually done a couple of reasonably sizable trips to the dump in the car, would you believe? And I've actually had a lot of kiddie stuff in there, and I've actually found the boot to be quite generous, a lot more generous actually than I expected it to be. Yes, the car has a small fuel tank, yes, because it's probably used, it's used by people on track days and whatever it might be, but as a daily driver it is quite annoying having to fill it up all the time. Following on from that comment around the fuel tank, I've actually found the car to be reasonably economical when I want it to be. I'm not one of these people that has any interest in thrashing the car 24 hours a day, Sport Plus mode every second, throwing it round corners, pretending I'm a race car driver and going on forums and mugging people off because they've got reasonable MPG. I think it's good when you cruise along in efficient mode to actually have a little bit of play in that MPG, so you don't feel like you're living at the V-Power pump. And this car does it. I mean, I think I've averaged over the duration of this 3 months around 27.5 mpg. I went in with a really positive attitude about having 2 doors, and then I actually started to have to do a little bit more with the children around sort of lockdown pickups and stuff. And there have been times where it has grated on me in the pouring rain, where I'm trying to get an 8-year-old into the back of the car and we're trying to move the seat forward and pull it forward, and but that's that's my own decision. People are not going to buy these things necessarily to cart family around all the time, but it did annoy me a little bit on occasion. Overall I didn't really find too much of a problem with it, but on occasion sort of getting those seats forward and getting kids in, and also my other child is 2, getting a rather sizable car seat through that gap was doable, but sort of bending over and putting a kid in the back, it isn't the most pleasurable experience. But again, it's a personal thing. I've been reasonably happy with the way that the car has rode on the suspension. I touched upon it in another video. It doesn't have that kind of suspension that you can change, but overall I've never really felt, especially on motorways and on the A roads and such, any form of aggro bouncing around a little bit, because we bounce around in this car. As part of my sort of daily routine, a couple of times a week I drive down to pick up my son on a nice stretch of back road. When I say nice, there are parts of it and there are parts of it that are absolute trash. Now I have found on a few occasions that especially when the weather's now turned, that's been a bit more of a chore to drive down there in this car, because when it's wet, I'm forever dodging potholes that are full of water, which you kind of would do in any car, I suppose, but you're kind of a bit more protective over this particular car. And, you know, I've been very, very cautious. It's been quite slippery. And I've got to say that the uneven surface of going down there all the time and doing that has, you know, it's grated on me a couple of times. Another thing that's been slightly frustrating is you'll see that the leather on some of the seats is actually quite loose. Apparently this is a BMW trait, and a couple of people told me in the forums, and a couple of people I know said they'd had a similar issue. To me though, I think that's quite poor. I know it's the style of leather that it is, but someone actually told me a brilliant trick, and I haven't used it in this car, but I've seen it used. And actually, if you get a very hot towel and actually use it on the leather, it does actually bring away some of that, you know, wrinkling. But when you're paying the best part of 50 grand for a car and the sort of leather sagging off the seats, you know, especially when no one really sits in that seat, I think that's a little bit frustrating. When I picked the car up, and after about sort of me doing about 500 miles in it, I noticed there was a ticking, like a tick 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 injector noise coming from behind the steering wheel area here, and everybody on the forum said, oh, you know, it's a characteristic of the car, it's part of it, da, 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 da. So I kind of let it go for a little while, but I couldn't really stop hearing it. I ended up taking it into BMW, and actually they told me that on inspection, one of the actual well, there's a sleeve that goes over the steering column underneath the wheel would actually come loose, and that actually acted with a little bit of sound deadening, and that's why I could hear so much tick 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 injector noise when I was putting the throttle down. So they actually replaced that and sorted it out, which was good. It was missed by the initial dealership, and also they actually did a flash on the gearbox, because I did say that in certain gears it was causing a bit of a problem. Other than that, it's been problem free. I'll tell you one thing I'm not going to miss is cleaning the wheels, man, on the standard car. Not the 763Ms, but the ones that just come standard with the comp. It is mind-numbingly, frustratingly, finger-shreddingly annoying, and I will not miss it. Disclaimer, this will change where you are in the world, but, you know, I never got round to changing or modifying the exhaust in the M2 comp. I did have plans to, but obviously plans have now changed. I've got to say that I really missed a decent sound out of the car for the 3 months that I've had it. In the UK, the car, it sounds okay, and I said in my videos it's not too bad. There's the fake sound that's pumped in, but it doesn't have the real sports car thrum, you know, the excitement factor that you would expect. I'm driving around trying to think of niggly things to talk to you about other than what I've already explained, and I'm really struggling to think of anything negative to say, and then I'm sitting there and thinking, oh my god, I'm going to be devastated when this goes on Saturday. I'm not sure I want it to go. One thing, and probably the sad thing, that I've really liked about the M2 Comp is the way that it looks. And on a daily basis, I don't think I've ever walked into my office, ever walked into the supermarket, after parking about 450 meters from any other car, of course, not looked back and thought to myself, wow, this is a great looking car, and I'm gonna miss that when it's gone. But on a daily basis, you know, having that feeling has just been exceptionally good. I'm pleased that I got to enjoy the car in finer weather. I think that if the car sort of was moving on and I was getting rid of it, and we were just coming in past spring into summer, I think I'd be a little bit more devastated than I am right now, because I'm not sure that I would have been able to maximise as much fun and performance with the crappy British weather. So there is a little bit of silver lining there, I suppose. I think maybe I'm just trying to think of things to make myself feel better. If you spend 50, 60 grand on a performance car and you turn round up on that high horse and say, I don't really care what people think of it, I don't really care if people look at it or not, you're a liar. Personally, I love that people take an interest in the car that I drive. I like the fact that it turns heads, and I like the fact that I've been asked questions and people want to talk about it and find out a little bit more, and I like to see people in their cars having a little chatter about what I'm driving. Might make me a bad person, might make me shallow, but I think it all comes as part of the package for me. I will miss that. Now guys, whilst the M2 might be departing, I don't want you to feel that there won't be any more M content on the channel. Getting people together and doing reviews and stuff is actually quite challenging at the moment with everything that's going on with the pandemic and everything else. But there is still going to be M2 features on the channel. Got some modified ones lined up to come on, which will be a really interesting drive. And there's still going to be some proper M car content. So I want to thank you all for tuning in to what will be my final video of my M2 competition. Like I said, more to come in regards to M performance on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's just I wanted to do one last video with it, really, just talk about what it's been like over 3 months. But summary, it's been brilliant. There are a few little niggles here and there that you get with most things, but it's been brilliant. New car coming in a couple of days. We'll be doing a video. Imagine it's probably going to disappoint some people that are avid M-Power fans, but I'm hoping that it's actually going to be quite a fun little car to drive. Hint, hint.